Hi. My September 11th story didn't take place in New York. I was on my way to work. I work at a community college in Staten Island. And I remember waking up that morning and it was just a picture-perfect, beautiful day. And after getting my kids off to school, I'm driving on the expressway to the college, and I can clearly see the towers from the road on Staten Island. They were so big you could see them for miles, and it looked wonderful. And I started thinking about what we did over the summer, and this summer in particular was very special for my family. You see, after being married for 15 years, we finally broke ground in the construction of our first home together. So we were so excited and happy. It was just the best time in our lives. And just as I was pulling into the college, I heard an announcement on the radio, and like Tom, in my mind, I thought it was a small Cessna. And I ran to my desk, I turned on my computer, and then I reached for my phone trying to call my husband. My husband worked for Engine 6, which is located downtown here on Beekman Street, and he had worked the night tour. He was due to be relieved early that morning. He had things that he was going to do, and I tried him on his cell. When he didn't answer, I called the firehouse. And I actually did get to speak to a fireman, and I was hysterical. I was very scared. I had now, at this time, seen on my computer just how horrific this was, and I spoke to this fireman from a different company, and he explained that 6 had been called out on a run and they were covering the house. But he realized that I was scared, and he knew, listen, perfect fire department mentality, just remain calm. He calmed me down. He assured me that Paul was most likely on his way home and we'll take care of it. And I said, okay. Now, my computer froze after that. People were logging on, and it was just a lot going on. So I had a radio on, and I listened of what was happening after that. And I knew by the time the Pentagon was hit that it was time for me to go. A colleague had mentioned it, and I knew my job is I got to go home. I got to get my kids. I got to keep them safe. I know that if Paul was on his way home, he would have turned around and went back to work, so there was no point in me trying to get in touch with him. I call this the grace of God, but I was able to get both my boys from 2 separate schools relatively quickly. But on the way home, I had heard that the South Tower had collapsed. Now, understanding how it would pancake down, like Tom, I thought in my mind that it must have toppled over, knocked the other one down, and just wiped out all of Lower Manhattan. It was just, I couldn't comprehend this. So the first thing I do when I get home, I turn on the TV. And if you didn't have cable, you didn't have TV, but I had cable. So I was about to see what I can only imagine. And the first thing I hear was the announcer saying that he just wanted to warn people. He was about to show footage of the North Tower collapse, and that people had jumped, and I said, oh no. My 2 boys were behind me, and I didn't want that image in their mind, and I was really shocked that they would put something like that on TV. So I just turned around and I said to them, listen, boys, everything's going to be okay. We don't need to hear this. Why don't you guys go out to the front porch and play with the trains? Now you see, just 2 weeks earlier, my husband had gifted his beloved Lionel HO grade train set to his boys. And he was so proud of this collection that he collected ever since he was like 10. Each train hermetically sealed in their original boxes. He knew that the boys were old enough now and responsible enough to play with them, and we were so busy at the project, the house, so there was no camping trips or anything like that. So I think that's what he wanted them to have, now. So, and I just wanted to transport them into a different reality. And I knew I'm not going to listen, and there was no point in me trying to do anything but wait. I know fire department protocol, and that worst scenario, they'll call me, and I'll just wait. So that basically was the longest day of my life, but I did get a phone call, but it was about 8 o'clock that night. Now, my husband's company was a single-engine company, and that meant there was about 25 men who worked there. Paul worked there for about 9 years. He knew everybody. He loved, loved, loved his job. And he used to come home and tell me stories about what happened in the firehouse, and he did these wonderful impressions. So whenever I called or I would meet these men, I would know exactly who they were. And they would like, how do you know me? Oh, I know you, I know you. So it was just terrific. It was a real family type feeling. I don't know if there's any rescue workers in the room, but besides Tom here. But it is really a family. So that first phone call was from a fireman by the name of Kenny King, and he was the Miles Davis of the fire department. And he was just this wonderful person and big teddy bear type guy. He always called me baby. And he said, baby, he said, the captain wants to speak to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now the captain is a new officer to the house. He had been promoted, and I only met him once before. He got on the phone and he told me that Paul was in fact still on duty, and he confirms that Paul was not in any local hospital. I told him I was terrified, and he just said, stay calm, listen. He said, I located Billy, he was with him. I'm on my way to speak to him, I will call you. So I said, okay, I don't want to watch TV. He goes, don't worry, I will be your eyes, I'll be your ears. I will call you, I promise. Just remain calm. So I did, and I waited. And from that moment on, that man's voice became my voice of hope. And that very next morning at 8 o'clock, he called me from the site. Now, he's trying to explain to me what he's seeing, like Tom described. No man should see these sort of things. And he's trying to explain to me, and he's very upbeat. He's like, Arlene, I know exactly what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the North Tower, and the 14th floor, that's where they were, approximately. He goes, I want you to have faith. There are places, spaces, and voids. They're here somewhere. We're going to find him. It's okay. Okay. Now, this went on for about 2 weeks. And I can tell you September 11th was a Tuesday, but in my heart by Thursday, I knew he wasn't coming home. I just felt it. He was all around me, and I could feel that love, and I knew. But these men were really very determined, and they were still holding on to the hope. I can remember the captain handing the phone down from the site. He would hand them down to the other firemen as he was working, and I could just hear it in their voice. I was so worried about them. So this went on and on now for 2 weeks. Captain would call me sometimes at night at the end of the day, and he would ask me, he said, how are you doing? And I said, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get through this without him. And he was always encouraging me, and he would say to me, Arlene, what did you do when he was at the firehouse? You will do this. You will get through this. You have no choice. You have to do it. So, okay. And he's like, and by the way, please call me Roger. So I said, okay, Captain Roger. And he was like, okay, all right, fine. We had this incredible bond, and it was really a wonderful thing. So one of my nightly conversations, I have to make a decision. I have to get my kids back to school. I have to get them out of this house. I have to, what am I going to do? So in my nightly conversation, I said, Captain, did Paul ever talk to you about the house? And his voice just got very upbeat, and he said, is this about the plumbing? And I said, yes, yes. Now, firemen are never just firemen. He says, you know I'm a plumber, right? As the fireman / anything and everything. Yes, this is about the plumbing. He just said, you know what? I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to grab the guys. I'm going to meet you at the house on this Saturday. And I was just so excited. So on that Saturday, I met the guys from 6 and Captain. And it was just this wonderful, wonderful day for all of us. I mean, it was hard for them. I mean, they were coming off this pile, and now they're coming to my house. They're seeing me. They're seeing my kids. They're seeing this house that's just a shell. And it was heartbreaking. But I was just so grateful, and I had to hug everybody. And we decided on that day that we're going to do this together. And they helped me, and we all came together. On October 13th, I had 12 firemen pulling cables and wires, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful day. And I used to tease them all the time. I said, you know, Paul was a machinist, and he'll be watching everything you do from above, so just make sure you do it right. And then I would tell them stories about what Paul had told me from the firehouse, and they would get a kick out of that. I would say, "Did I do it right?" And they were like, "Yeah, you got it right." It was just wonderful, and I saw this terrific transformation from these men, beaten and battered, to happiness, and them helping me was helping them, and that was a wonderful thing. So now we got to fast forward here, 10 years. We're, to me, the 10th year anniversary. I decided if you would have asked me what I would want here at this site, I would say nothing. Nothing gave me peace here, nothing. Nothing could make me happy, and I knew that I had some healing on my own I had to do. My kids are doing well. I made peace with my house. That was very difficult, but it took me like 2 years before I'd actually sit down and have a meal, but I did that work. So I had heard about the Tribute Center, and I decided, you know what, maybe if I come and I share my story about my wonderful husband, Paul, who was the light of my life. He was a wonderful father and devoted husband and a wonderful fireman. I get to share his memory with you, and you get to take him home with you, and all the members from the 6th Engine. So thank you, and God bless.